So I'm going to tell you a story today, and I have 2 points. The first point I'm going to cover is why this route gives me the willies. Second point, I'm going to cover why I'm especially experienced to say that. And I'm going to explain why I'm still going to do this. So most of you already know, I've already explained that I have a combat experience. And why I chose that is I want to have stories to tell. When I was younger, I would usually choose the most interesting choice in life, be it where to live in life, what job to pick, where to live. And so, when I chose the military, it was like, heck yeah, I'm going to join the Army and, jump out of planes and blow things up. Like probably most people do when they join the Army. The other people are like, yeah, I just want a college degree, and the Army pays for that. Some people just they've never had a new pair of boots in their life, they're poor, and they're like, yeah, they'll give me new clothes and everything, so place to live. So there's different reasons why people choose the Army. I chose it because it was interesting to me. And also it's family legacy. So my granddad was in World War II. He was in the 101st, and through that he was actually with the 501st and attached to the 101st. And he had 3 combat jumps. So the only time in history that, anybody would have jump wings with, 2 mustard stains on it. So I was proud of him, and our family all looked up to him. So I kind of followed in his footsteps in a way. Not that that was why I did it, but it sort of happened that way. So getting into the Army, my first duty station was 101st, and this was, 2003, or very end of 2002, right before deploying to Iraq for that first, invasion of Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom. We were in Camp New Jersey, and we were pushing forward. We weren't the front, like with 3rd ID was at the front more, but we were taking a different route. We were going up through Al Hilla, which is, in Babylon province. It's the ancient, city of Babylon area in there. So very storied area, very interesting to go there. And we were in column formation in our Humvees going up that way, and we got hit. So not me particularly, but this was 2 vehicles ahead of us. We heard shots ring out, and a gunner went down. So a gunner in the gunner hatch went down. So people opened fire, but we couldn't see where it was. We couldn't really pinpoint where it was coming from. And then we just ceased fire and couldn't figure out where it was. But that gunner was symbolic to me of why my decision to live and have battle scars was stupid, okay? So he was shot in the neck and survived. He had a scar that, I don't know how this happened, but it went semicircle around his neck like this, and it grazed him. So it grazed around his neck. I never understood how that happened, but I always thought that guy had the best battle scar that I've ever heard of, and he lived to tell about it. So that to me was symbolic, and I was just thinking how stupid of me to want battle scars. It's dumb. When you're young, you make stupid decisions like that. So I kind of changed after that, and I became more careful. And eventually I became a route planner. So I was in the infantry this was the career path, is I was in the infantry for 3 years, and then went MI after that, which, I was basically doing route planning for the infantry in a future job. So fast forward, I go to the captain's career course. I go to a little transition course, which was for infantry guys to become MI, and it was basically doing a military decision-making process, autonomous prep of the battlefield and so on. And this schooling was pretty long. It was about a year down at Fort Huachuca, Arizona. After that, my follow-on duty station was in Anchorage, Alaska. So to go there was 3 options. I could fly there and have my stuff shipped out. I could drive to Seattle, Washington and take the ferry up, or I could just drive up. And I thought, wow, I could drive from the border of Mexico to Alaska, and it's a 5 to 7 day long trip. And I thought, wow, that's great. And it was a really good experience, but that was another example of me choosing the most interesting way. And also it saved taxpayer money. So I actually got a little bit of money back from that because of the expense of that trip was less than taking the ferry or taking a plane and having the stuff shipped out. I basically just was my own moving company, moving up there. A lot of interesting experiences driving up. I recommend it to anybody who's looking for an adventure. If you can drive to Seattle, you can take the ferry. I didn't take that way, but I thought that would be interesting too. In fact, I almost did that, driving up from Arizona, I went to Seattle, and I was like, I could take the ferry. And then when it came down to it, I was like, no, I'm just gonna drive. So I had just my truck, and I had my moving trailer, and then just the bed of my truck and the cab of my truck with all my stuff. And this was in April, so it was still pretty much wintertime, north of the border in Canada and in Alaska. So I was like, wow, this is gonna be cool, and saw a lot of cool things driving up there. Very few gas stations at certain points. Went to the Yukon, drove through the Yukon, and some of the highways up there are pretty rugged. Saw Dall sheep. At one point I had to stop on the road for a herd of Dall sheep to cross. There was one place where there was a sign in Canada that said "Caution, falling rocks," and then just past this was a giant boulder in the asphalt. So I was like, wow. In Canada, when they say falling rocks, they really mean it. So anyway, that was interesting. But this was me going to 4th to 25th Airborne in Anchorage, Alaska. And that was then going to go directly to Iraq for another deployment. And this would turn out to be 2006, 2007 timeframe. So it was an extended deployment. It was a year and 3 months. I don't think we really knew at that time how long that deployment would be. But there I was, planning routes for a logistics battalion. And that was, I had done this for the first deployment in the infantry, planning routes. And one thing you never want to do is, if you're going into a dangerous place where people are trying to kill you, you don't want to go through a dangerous area, turn around and come back through that same dangerous area because they're going to be expecting you. So you always want to be unexpected what you're doing. And other terrain features like in Afghanistan, you guys might remember seeing some of these canyons, driving through those, that would make the hair on your neck stand up. A lot of ambushes would happen in places like that. So, but I was experiencing route planning, excuse me, in this was southern Baghdad area, where that logistics battalion got a meritorious unit citation for being one of the safest battalions in a very dangerous area. So there were many casualties in this area, and only a couple, I think it was only 2 or 3, a handful of them were from that battalion. And 2 of those, when I planned the routes, there was never any casualties. So I would plan the routes, and for example, they would go out to resupply some far out unit, and then they would have to drive back. I would have to plan that route. So I would use, look at the times, look at where there's potential attacks, and I would tell them, there was one example where they were going pretty far out, and I looked at the road they were coming back on, and it looked like all the attacks were like right after breakfast time. And that made sense to me because it's like, people will go out there, they'll stay overnight, they'll have breakfast, and then they just drive up this dangerous road. And I told them not to do that. I said, you guys need to be out of there by about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. If you're running late and you can't get out, then you need to stay there until like late afternoon. And they decided not to do that, which they had orders from the battalion commander to obey my route plans, and they didn't, and that was one of the casualties that happened. So that's just to give you an idea about that I am experiencing this, but it's also combat experience. So I have to sort of rein in and look at, am I having an emotional reason to be reticent about a route, and just analyze that logically. So I think that's part of it, but it's also looking at where it is. It could be dangerous in wintertime. So what I want to do is I want to go about 5 miles up basically a service road that nobody's been to. I went out there and kind of looked where it is, and there was still fresh snow on the road leading up to this starting point. So I don't think anybody's been out there. It's an old county road, and it does go through, like if you're trying to drive, if you drive all the way through, it does go through to like another part of Colorado. But that gives me a good sign that there may not be anybody there. So I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna park and then go up this long sort of canyon that's going up. And it's a little over maybe 5 miles to go up through the snow. I don't know how deep the snow is gonna be, but then coming back, it's going to be the same route. So in combat, I would never, if this was a combat mission, I would say, no, do not do this. And that's kind of where I'm looking at, why I'm choosing to do it instead of say, no, don't do it. But I'm going to get emergency beacon, if something happens. Let's say I'm walking on this trail and suddenly I fall through ice, get out and I'm soaking wet. I push this beacon and, rescue will come. And I hate the idea of calling for rescue, but it's a smart thing to do, to plan this and to have the ability to call for rescue. So I'm gonna do that. That's gonna be part of the safety of this. Gotta have communications. So I have a cell phone, and it's probably not gonna be cell phone coverage. So I'm gonna lose communication. I'm gonna be off the grid in a sense. Going up a long canyon road and then coming back on this, it's an area I'm unfamiliar with, so I don't know what's out there. Are there maybe an old hermit or miser lives out there and doesn't want anybody out there? I don't know, but there's potential danger to this that if I get into trouble, I won't be able to get out quickly. So there's no exfil that I can just leave, and I may not have communications, and if I get into trouble, I'm unfamiliar with it. That's the other thing. So there's a little bit that gives me the willies of like, hey, this could potentially be, this is not a smart route plan, but it's not combat. So I'm gonna go ahead and choose to do this and just take every safety precaution that I could think of before I go. I'm gonna bring overnight equipment. I'm gonna bring winter sleeping gear, which I have. I have a 4-season tent. I have, a sleeping pad. I've got winter. My sleep gear can do -20, which really means it'd be probably comfortable about -5 or 10 or so. Gonna bring food, water, emergency beacon, and probably maybe a little camp stove too. But I want to be able to survive multiple days if I'm out there and call for help. But I'm not planning on doing multiple days. I'm planning this to be just go out early in the morning and come back. So that's what my plan is. And a little bit of this gives me the willies, makes the hair on my neck stand up. And, I was laying in bed thinking about, why is this giving me the willies? And that was what I thought about as my combat experience. So I was like, that's why. Because in combat, I would not do this. I would not recommend this. I would not plan this for anybody. But it's not combat. And I will prepare for it if it is. So that's where we're going. And just to have a good story to tell. And will record. So the other thing is battery life. So I have my phone, I don't have an extra battery to charge it, and I want to have that phone not run out of battery. So I won't be able to record unless I can find some kind of like battery charger, today or tomorrow, or whenever before I go out. If I can find that, I will get that. So just making up a list of everything I need, and then going to go look at the actual. I went out there yesterday, which the sun sets around 5 p.m. and I went out there around 4. I was looking for the route to get to this place, and there were it was hard to find because there's a lot of private property. So the old road is no longer what's on Google Maps. If you take what's on Google Maps, you end up in someone's private property. No trespassing. Stop. This is, you're trespassing. Like what? This is supposed to be this road. No, there's another way to circle around that now. So this is, just another part of the theme of this Colorado Randonautica is you're running into, there's so many like private properties that are new or that block access to public land, and that's just part of the experience of doing this. So that's all I got to say.